All right, welcome back. OTB here with Andres, and we are reviewing players.
Sorry, that was probably very obnoxious.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I liked it. It caught me off guard, but it was very alpha of you. Andres gets to do the next introduction. We are reviewing players and and giving grades for the 2021 season, and we are going to talk about the second talisman between the sticks, and that's going to be everybody's favorite journeyman, Joe Hart. We did see some Joe Hart, much more under Mourinho, obviously in the first half of the season. He played a lot through the early stages of the FA Cup, as well as the early stages of the Europa. And by a lot, I mean he probably had I think he had 10 matches in together. And he kept 5 clean sheets in those 10 matches. But you have to remember, once again, that he played against pretty weak opposition for the most part. So, that being all taken into account, how do you think Joe Hart performed in those 10 matches? And what do you think is the future of Joe Hart? As far as I know, he still has another year. Andres, take it away.
Yeah, man. I think that when people saw that we signed Joe Hart last season or like last transfer window, everyone seemed a little bit, underwhelmed, right? Because it's a little bit of a has-been. Apparently, he was signed for his presence in the dressing room, which I think can be important in developing a winning mentality.
Sure.
That's part of the reason that Højbjerg was signed on, because Mourinho and staff were impressed by his leadership qualities. And that's something that we did see, and Højbjerg did become a pretty important part of Spurs in general. Joe Hart, however, was signed for little else apart from, like you said, a couple of appearances here and there in the League Cup and the Europa League. But apart from that, that was it. I think he performed as well as he could have, given that he was never meant to, take over for Hugo Lloris. That being said, there were some of the goals that he did concede were pretty disappointing. There were a couple of times, especially against, I forget the team, but I forget if it was Europa League or in the League Cup. I have it up right here. I think it was against LASK, L-A-S-K. That he gave up like 1 or 2 really iffy near post goals.
Yeah, I remember.
And you would think, right? Like you would think that a goalkeeper would be able to block that out. If he gets beaten by a worldie, I mean, who can complain, right? Sometimes the strike is just too good. But given that he had a limited amount of opportunities to shine, and he let in some what could be considered easy goals, at least 1 or 2 of them. My rating for him would be C- if I'm feeling harsh. Probably just a C, though, because it was just an average performance from what is now an average goalkeeper, and I don't think you can ask anything more of that.
No. The only reason I would grade him a C2, but instead I'm going to actually give him a C-, just because he pushed our beautiful, beautiful boy, Paulo Gazzaniga.
Of course. How could I forget? Yeah.
And like that... I thought when Hugo went down, now I guess a couple years back, when he went down, I thought Gazzaniga did a pretty decent job filling in. It wasn't great, but I think he did a pretty serviceable job in the Premier League. And I was shocked when I was like, okay, Joe Hart's going to be the number. Joe Hart's coming in for the training, for locker room presence, and that's what I believed. And then when I started seeing him pop up as the starter for our road to Europe, I was a little surprised, honestly, and I was hurt for my boy Gaza. That's right, Gaza number 2, Argentinian Gaza.
Hey, did you see that he's leaving, by the way?
Yeah. He's. I don't blame him. His contract's out. Why would he want to resign? He's third to Joe.
For sure.
Freaking Hart.
For sure.
I'd be the first one.
It is a shame, because I think you're right. Like Gaza did show a little bit of promise in his time filling in for Hugo Lloris.
Yeah.
And then Joe come lately or whatever comes in and takes that spot and does an okay job, but doesn't really shine. I don't know if it was worth it, but at the end of the day, probably Joe is going to stick around for another season and then be gone after that, or whenever his contract is up.
I think it was a 2-year contract, but somebody will correct us if we're wrong.
I'm sure.
All right, so you gave him a C. I gave him a C minus. Let's go ahead and go with the average. A C for Joe Hart. He was basically the equivalent of plain oatmeal. So thank you, Joe Hart, for that for that season. Let us know what you guys think. Like, comment, and let us know how you feel about what grade would you give Joe Hart coming in.
Hey, before we sign off, one last thing on Joe Hart. He would just not shut up. Like, he was like, you would hear him constantly yelling all the time at his defenders. And I get that. Like, I think you want someone who's vocal, right? But at what point, you do have to wonder, at what point does it just start to have diminishing returns because you just get yelled at for everything, right? Like, I know, like, and this is a basic psychology thing. Like, when my mom used to yell at me when I was a very small child, she yelled at me so much that it was like a diminishing return where I would just like block it out and be like, yeah, whatever. Okay, yeah, whatever. You know? So I wonder if that affected our defenders too. I don't know. But that's something that stuck out to me, just how vocal he was.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I hadn't considered that, especially with, let's say, when we played Rodon and Tanganga early on. But still, I don't know. I like a loud defender. A loud goalkeeper.
Well, I like him to be mute.
Well, let us know how you felt about Joe Hart down in the comments. Like, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on The Break. Thanks, everybody.